Welcome to this fireside chat about IoT, brought to you by Ny Teknik and Telenor IoT. My name is Magnus Aschan and I will be your moderator for this fireside chat. And with me I have Martin Whitlock, you're the CTO of Telenor IoT, and Bengt Nordström, you're Managing Director for Accenture in the Nordics. Welcome.
Thank you.
I'm thinking let's start just from the basics, Martin. Why should companies be excited about IoT?
Very good question. Looking back a few years, I think most companies saw potentially an upside of connecting their products and possibility to differentiate compared to competition by adding services that could help optimize the operations of the device or add new services and so on. Today, I think that has changed into a way that if you can connect your product and you can bring value, you have to, because competition is already doing it. So you need to really be there and optimize everything you do. And I think what we can see from our customers, it's a wide range of use cases. They use the business model or something like that. Yeah. Generate value. And if you, on top of that, add the sustainability aspects of using IoT for reducing carbon footprint from reduced travel or optimized logistics chains, or even letting the product know itself when it's time to service it and thereby extend the lifespan and reduce replacement rates and everything like that. I think, yeah, most companies are definitely interested in looking into IoT these days.
So it's really, really broad. Would you say that there is any type of business or organization that doesn't have any use of IoT?
Probably there are, but at the same time, I think most industries and most verticals are actually benefiting from connected devices these days. And automotive industry has always been quite advanced in this. They were early on in adding telematics, as it was called back then, into the connected trucks and then cars and everything like that. But these days you find connectivity in more or less anything, from consumer electronics to a lot of B2B2B contexts.
So from your point of view, Bengt, why do you think that companies and organizations should be excited about IoT?
Well, I think first of all, I agree with what Martin is saying here. Those are really important drivers. I think in addition, if I take an Accenture perspective, for us, this is to a large extent about forming businesses into becoming data-driven companies. Use data to drive your business, collect data, analyze data, shape and form your business and products and solutions based on the data you collect and analyze. So it's very much part of a digitalization journey that we are doing together with our clients. And when doing so, you need to connect your products. You can have more advanced sensors and measuring all kinds of things, and then using that data. That is the key thing for us.
So what you can't measure, you can't manage holds true in this case?
Absolutely. And a very important aspect of this is that IoT, which traditionally has been very narrow band oriented because of technology limitations, today is more broadband capable. And when we have that capability, we can collect more data. So more sensors, more to collect, more to analyze, and let that drive your business.
Right. And that's a great segue into what I would say is the focus for this fireside chat, talking more about the connectivity, because this is a landscape that is moving really, really fast. We've had 2G, 3G for these type of applications for a long time, but now things are happening. Can you sort of just explain or paint this landscape for us, Martin?
Sure. As an industry, we've introduced several generations of technologies for mobile connectivity in the last years, of course. And I think most of them have been deployed, or new generations have come to fulfill the needs for mobile handsets, primarily. More data in the handsets, better voice quality, better coverage, and all these things. But we also managed to use those networks for connecting things. somehow. You know, we started using 2G and GPRS technology in the telematics to connect trucks back in the 90s already. So we managed to use them. But what's happening now, in particular with 5G, which is being introduced on the market now, is that we have networks that from start are defined and specified for the use cases of IoT. This means that we have functionality coming in play now that optimizes the performance of power management for battery-operated devices, for instance, in smartwatches or sensors remotely located or whatever it is that you can't charge by electricity normally. You have better support for deep indoor coverage. A lot of these sensors are positioned in basements or under roads or whatever it might be, where coverage is definitely an issue. So you have better protocols for supporting that. Absolutely, I think most of us have maybe seen the really advanced use cases associated with IoT, like self-driving cars and very demanding applications, which requires quality of service all the way out to the device. And the 5G networks are built to support those use cases as well. So I think from that perspective, it's quite interesting to see what happens now. Even if we should also respect that it's going to take some time, of course, to get those networks available everywhere.
Right. Would you say that there are any typical, or do you have any examples of use cases that were not possible to do before because of either technical or commercial, perspectives that now is actually starting to get viable?
I think so, and maybe if we look here and now, what already is the case is the networks called narrowband IoT and LTM and those technologies, those standardizations that allow for this battery-operated devices up to 10 years maybe. If you just send a temperature value of some sorts or something like that, you can expect to have an operation lifetime of that device for up to 10 years maybe with a reasonably sized battery. And that has not been the case before. If you would realize that with 2G, for instance, you probably would need a pretty big battery, or you would have someone going out and charge that. And if you just imagine what this can lead to in terms of supporting agriculture in remote areas and sensors that supervise maybe a water flow system in a municipality, I think it's quite clear that we definitely see the value of the technology and generate the data points that Bengt mentioned, which is critical for business-driven organizations these days to use that information. Suddenly we can get access to the information. Right.
So Bengt, from your point of view, what does this technology enable? And I'm also thinking about something like sensors moving around, that we have perhaps different ways of having mobile sensors now with the new technology.
Yes, and I think alongside with what Martin is saying here, the interesting thing here is that we can do on one end on the scale these narrowband solutions that consumes very little battery and therefore have a long lifetime. But then I'm actually even more excited about the other end of the scale, where we have the broadband capability. Because we have this have always had this technology trend with whatever computing power we manage to manufacture or memory capability, we always consume that. And I think that will be the trend for cellular IoT as well. It will get broadband oriented. We will use that capability to a very large extent. And for us, as a company, we are super focused on generative AI. Generative AI is a spectacular breakthrough in technology, but it will consume a lot of bandwidth when we try to analyze and collect that data. So that is a very interesting aspect of this. Then I think as a company, we are super pragmatic about connectivity solutions when we work with our clients. We always are seeking for what works, what is available globally, what are the price points, what is the performance? Because what we are building is something that has to work always for our customers. So ultimately, that will boil down to making safe bets on technology that works here and now.
Right.
If I also may add to what Bengt, with generative AI and all these use cases, we are, of course, super excited about that as well. One learning I think we need to make from being both of us support of the telco industry for a long time is that now when 5G, for instance, is coming in play, it opens up for brand new use cases. And we have this quality of service, have gigabits per second type of speeds. I think what we've been quite poor at as an industry in the past is to predict what's going to be the killer app or the use cases that are really going to make a difference. We always have an idea, of course, as an industry when we release a new generation that, yeah, for 3G we thought that voice call is going to be the big thing. It actually took some more time, and not until the 4G and iPhones came in play with FaceTimes and what have you, it happens. But I think the good part here is that there's always someone finding out what the technology will be used for. That's not an issue. I'm definitely relying on a lot of innovation coming, not only from peers in our own ecosystem, but our customers will definitely make use of the technology. And I think that's going to be interesting to see as well, what will happen with 5G. We have some ideas, definitely, but the opportunities are endless, and it's all about the business imagination too.
And if I add a point there, Martin, I think that's a super important aspect, because when you look overall in the mobile industry, we have a super mature consumer business. We cannot connect more consumers because we have already penetration of like 130, 140% in many markets. But when it comes to enterprise market, we have just scratched the surface in many aspects. There is still so much growth to capture. But that will also require that we understand industrial needs. So if you take a company like Accenture, the best thing that can happen for the fast sort of evolution of this is that, like thousands or 10,000s of our solution architects becomes knowledgeable about 5G and what it can be used for. And of course, our peers in the industry as well. So that's where the growth is, and that is where the competence need to be developed, how we sell these solutions to enterprise clients.
Right. And that makes me wonder, because there has been a discussion about what is 5G's killer app. And I've heard from many places that it might not actually be in the sort of consumer area. Of course, people would enjoy to have 8K video streaming on their cell phone watching Netflix, but maybe not. That's not like the big killer app, but rather within industries. So saying that, and again, I know that 5G is a big sort of umbrella term, but what would you point out to be, the really cool things that makes 5G be this killer app for the industry?
I think you can add here as well, Bengt, but my first thought is actually added bandwidth. It's probably the boring answer, but it's true as well. 5G opens up the possibility for operators to deploy mobile networks in other type of spectrum than we used before. And we need that spectrum to continue just the sheer growth of data that has been transmitted. So that's probably the boring answer to it.
I didn't expect that.
No, but it's true. But then again, I mean, looking at the new capabilities that 5G comes with, it's probably going to look a little bit different in different stages as well. First, 5G is going to be deployed in urban areas, in the cities, maybe not rural areas in the first wave at least. It's going to take some time. I think this is something to consider when also looking at the use cases you can realize. Many of our customers, they have a global perspective of things. They're not even looking at one city or one country. It's Europe or even worldwide. And that means that the use cases we maybe see and talk about in the hype curve type of context for 5G, it's going to take maybe a few years, even when we can start to see availability in the global scale. So, but in that context, use cases that can be deployed locally or regionally, here I think we'll definitely see a lot of edge computing is a buzzword where you can move out the computing power closer to the connected devices. That's often talked about with autonomous driving, ability for cars to make educated decisions based on what's happening around the corner, not sending the data back to cloud and so on. But yeah, that's probably where we see some kind of dramatic change thanks to 5G.
Right. And I think you had an important sort of statement about the hype curve there as well. And I want to ask Bengt the question, sort of how to navigate this landscape as a company, because there is a lot of proof of concepts, there's a lot of innovation going on. How would you know when it's time to actually start to jump on the bandwagon and start doing some real business cases, or where is it just experimentation? How is it possible to navigate this?
Yeah, and that's a great question, and also a big trap in many times when you try to build a new solution. I think we have this tendency in the world when we are looking at a particular problem we like to solve, a solution we like to build, we like to use the absolutely latest technology. That's sort of a natural instinct that many people have. But then when you analyze, double click on everything, where do I have coverage? Where is the capacity? Where does my operator partner have roaming agreements? Coverage indoor, outdoor, regional, global, all those aspects. Then you normally land in the conclusion, I need to use something that is well established, something that has been working for some years. So if in this particular context, I think with our clients, the natural first question comes, now we will use 5G. But when we have double-clicked on that question, we normally land at maybe 4G is the right starting point. That's where we have global presence, that's where we have roaming agreements, that's where we have still very good data capabilities. So I think that is where we land in our business with our clients. And I think you can take an example there. SMS, which is a 30-year-old technology, is still one of the most reliable ways to reach, authenticate a user of some kind. Email, almost as old, same, very reliable, available around the world. So that sort of aspect we think is very important.
Right. With that said, I know that we have like a 2G, 3G sunset going on. A lot of companies are actually, letting those networks be turned off. How would you know if 4G is a viable solution for a long time? You make a massive investment, you send out many sensors out on the market. How can you know that 4G will last? That's good to go with.
I think the evidence is really there. GSM was launched in '92. It's still available as a technology almost 30 years later. Right? 3G, which the industry had a lot of problems with because it was an immature technology when it was launched, is still something that lasts for like almost 20 years as a service. So 4G, which is actually up until 5G came, was the best technology the industry ever have launched, has, in my perspective, at least 15, 20-year lifetime. But here, Martin is the expert.
Yeah. Do you agree, Martin?
I'm going by intuition here, but he has the answer.
Yeah.
No, I agree. And I think to add to the argumentation there, why 4G is going to stay around, I think two things to add. First, the evolution of efficiency of how we utilize the spectrum. And I fall back to the spectrum because that's actually the natural resource that we utilize to communicate with the cellular technology. And we want to use that natural resource to the most efficient way possible, right? And why are we shutting off the 2G networks now? Well, because it's launched in '92 and technology has evolved since then. And the efficiency of 4G is way more advanced than 2G and also 3G. So, but comparing with 5G, for instance, at least in the spectrum bands, the lower frequencies where we use 4G typically, the advantage to 5G is actually less. If you talk the new frequency bands that are being launched on 5G, completely different. We can't even use 4G there. So the combination of 4G and 5G works pretty well and will continue to work very well for many years. It's even so that I see that in the early days of 5G, 4G is going to be essential to have as a coverage band to tell the devices to you have a 5G band to go to and utilize that when you have a lot of data to receive or anything like that. So they are designed to live in symbiosis, but otherwise, today is more critical to many of my customers than 5G, because 4G is, as Bengt pointed out, typically very much good enough for most of the use cases we can come up with today. So even if you're starting up an IT project today, you don't have to be worried about 4G being obsolete. In a few years, it's going to last for a long time. Yes, that's my message. And it's rather so that if you want to have a global solution that works today, the combination of 4G and 2G is probably the best choice. Yeah. So let's finish off with leaving 2G and 3G in their retirement home in the sunset, and just have a look at 5G and some of the new sort of acronyms we're getting to learn, where they are made for IoT applications. So things like 5G RedCap, 3G PP. Can you elaborate on what this is and why you should want to jump on that new shiny thing if you're running an IT project today? You want to go first, Bengt?
This is clearly Martin's area. I let him start and learn from him.
No, RedCap, acronym for Reduced Capability, actually is a 5G modem that you took away some things that are maybe not critical for an IT application, thereby making the device cheaper, which is usually a good thing, right? So, I mean, you will have a full-fledged 5G alternative always, and that's going to be used for a super advanced use cases. But in most situations, you're good with something that has a limited set of capabilities. And we're still talking about hundreds of megabits per second. And so, I mean, it's quite advanced compared to what we see in the field today, but still affordable. So I think this will, over time, be a great choice for IT applications. But then we're actually back to this with availability, because I think part of your question was why it's a great choice today. And I don't think it is, because 5G RedCap is dependent on the latest releases of 5G being deployed in the networks. And so far, that might be a situation in parts of US, in Malaysia, and some locations in Europe. But from a general perspective, it's not there yet. So then today, the technologies I mentioned before, it's LTM and maybe LTE Cat 1 and those type of technologies that usually is a better choice today. But in a few years, that may have changed, and then you might be good enough. But I think the important part is to start off, what are you planning to do with your connected product? Right. Unless you realize what business value you're going to create, it's typically quite hard to choose the right technology. But the other way around works very well. So if you know what you want to do, we have plenty of technology choices to choose from. And we can help with that. Telenor IoT can definitely help with that. Where in the world do you want to deploy? What do you want to do with it? How much data? Is it real-time critical? And so on. And all these choices that defines the technology. I mean, we will find the right technology today and tomorrow. But first, you need to understand what you want to do with it. I think that's the critical message here. Do you agree, Bengt?
I agree 100%. I think just to add to what Martin has been saying here, I think it's important to understand that in the 5G era, there has never been more talk about the advanced use cases, what industrial clients will use 5G for, transport sector, trucks and lorries and everything else. There are so many exciting ideas. But when I compare that with what kind of network has been built so far, there is a gap. There isn't support for these advanced use cases. So I would go with Martin's recommendation here. Look at the needs of your application and which technology that best serves that. The other point I like to make is that I I think I said that at a great event you organized the other week, that always start with what kind of business problem are we trying to solve? What is it we like to improve with the business we have? When you have those answers, then you can begin to look at the solutions, the technology and connectivity. But always start in the right end, asking how can we improve what we're doing today? What would we like to achieve as a business using modern technology?
So, Martin, if you want to know more, do you have a suggestion where to read up?
Absolutely. I would recommend to go to Telenor IoT website, and there we have a few resources. Among one is a white paper that we have co-created with Accenture, actually, about IoT technologies, and it's quite massive. I'm sure that you would find a lot of flesh to the bone there. And if that's not enough, we're of course also very happy to guide you and reach out to closest representative of our organization, and we're here to help.
Excellent. Thank you so much, CTO of Telenor IoT, Martin Whitlock, and Managing Director Accenture in the Nordics, Bengt Nordström. And thank you so much for watching this fireside chat about IoT. As you know, we just merely scratched the surface here, so please read up on the white paper if you want to delve into this more. And thanks again for watching.